Hello, my name is Makazi from Nerd Crew, and this is my Real Talk review on Dungeon Meshi, the manga, which I have right here. Now, this manga was published by Yen Press and serialized from February 2014 to September 2017. It's written by Ryoko Kui, who also is the mangaka. She drew and wrote this entire thing herself. She's not really well known for much. I did look her up, and she does have another work called Terrarium and Drawer, which is kind of funny because it kind of sounds like, Delicious in Dungeon. And apparently she's been noted for her work on dragons, like beforehand, like her art style and artwork. Her style has been noted as embodying unnaturalness, which I can kind of see that. When you get into later panels in this manga, you can kind of see the, not to get into too much spoilers, but you can kind of see certain creatures, we'll say, and how they kind of look unsettling and like dark and twisted and stuff, which is weird because, when you look at the manga as face value, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a dark story, but that's kind of what makes this manga so good, is that it kind of tricks you into thinking that it's not going to be a really dark story, but ends up, turning that way. The food as well is also drawn to a point where you it's hard to describe, but like when you look at the food and when we look through some of the panels later, you're going to see that every time a monster is turned into food, it's very obvious. Like every single time, like if you looked at the food alone, you could almost pretty much tell what the monster it came from was, because there's such detail in it. She goes into such care to turn these creatures into basically real life dishes that I'm pretty sure there's going to be YouTube channels out there and TikTok channels that are going to just be recreating the food all the time, which led me to believe, before I looked her up, I thought she was like a professional chef turned mangaka. And I mean, I didn't see that in her Wikipedia page. Maybe I missed that part, but yeah, if you told me that she was, a chef before becoming a mangaka, I would totally believe it. If you don't know anything about Dungeon Meshi, there is an anime available on Netflix. It's just the first season, which does go over the first 7.5 volumes of the manga. Now, the manga is only 14 volumes long, so that's about halfway through already. So if you've seen the anime, you're about halfway through already, and you can just go ahead and buy volume 8 and start from there. If you haven't seen it yet, go ahead and watch it on Netflix. If you don't have Netflix, you can go ahead and read it. The anime itself started airing on January 4th in 2024, and so it's pretty recent, and there hasn't really been any big announcements that I'm aware of at this time that a second season is coming, but I have to assume that it's coming because it did become super, super popular. So with that, I do have the collector's edition here, which here it is. It's a little on the heavy side, but I do have the collector's edition here, and I do want to take a closer look at that first before we dive into the manga and the review, or the real talk. Okay, so here we have the Delicious in Dungeon manga. As you can see, this is volume 1. I will say, if you end up picking up these books one at a time, the back does technically have spoilers, as it shows off all the monsters that you will find basically in each volume. So there might be a little bit of spoilers, but this is volume 1. You can see here, artwork is very nice. Honestly, again, you're looking at the food and stuff, like, just generally, the artwork is fantastic. Like, and some of the facial expressions is what really kills me in this manga. It's really what sells it to me. But the whole point of this is I did want to show off the collector's edition. So let's go ahead and get that out. Here is Delicious in Dungeon, the complete box set, volumes 1 through 4. Now, this is a really cool collector's edition, as this kind of looks like it almost kind of reminds me of card captors, almost like the cards for card captors. But it's supposed to be kind of like a box. And the reason why it's a box is because when you open it up, you have a mimic. This is how they describe mimics in the book. A little bit of a spoiler, but they describe them as kind of like hermit crab creatures that go ahead and inhabit treasure chests to fool adventurers. And then you open it up this way. It's all magnet based, and there you have all the volumes, except for volume 1, because I currently have that outside of the box. But as you can see, they all fit very nicely in here. Very tight fit. I don't want to go ahead and pull out each one because, again, I want to avoid spoilers. But the other thing that this box set has is right here, which is a poster. Now, I will say when it comes to the poster, it is a little bit on the spoiler side. So here's a spoiler warning, because the poster does have a lot of creatures on it and basically has every creature that is in the manga. So if you want to, go ahead and skip ahead. but I'm just going to kind of quickly show off the poster because, yeah, there are some major spoilers on this. But it is a very nice, clean poster, as you can see here. Very clean. And again, I just wanted to go and scan it over quickly because I don't want to spoil too many people, because it really does. It actually shows off every single creature that's in the manga itself. So, yeah, that is basically the entire box set. But I also wanted to kind of show off some of my favorite like pieces of artwork from this manga. And like, here's one of my favorite panels down here. You see Chilchuck dealing with his fear of mimics. And as you can see, the mimic looks just like the box set, which is pretty awesome, I must say. And yeah, I mean, this kind of just envelops everything I was talking about, or will be talking about, where it's like just the detail, like the fact that it's a hermit crab, the fact that, you know, these facial expressions are really nice. Like, she did such a great job writing this, I must say. And then when it comes to like the food is very detailed. It gives you like an ingredient list. They always have very good expressions when eating the food, like down here when Marcial's eating it and stuff like that. Like, just genuinely speaking, this manga is just very well drawn, very well animated, and I can't wait for season 2. Now, here comes a little bit of spoiler territory for later in the manga. This is from volume 11, and you can kind of see the artwork on the front cover, like, very well drawn, very well animated. And then when you get inside of it, like, again, just look at the facial expressions on the winged lion. Like, look at how they really make you think that this is just an adorable lion that's here to help them. But even in this, you can kind of see his cunning side. You know what I mean? Like, just, again, very well drawn, very well animated. And, you know, sorry for the spoilers on some of the manga panels, but I just wanted to kind of show off a little bit of the artwork and kind of explain, you know, why I think that this manga is fantastic. All right, and that was kind of a closer look at the manga itself as well as the collector's edition. I just wanted to talk about, you know, some of my favorite parts, as well as just give it kind of more of like a review feeling. I know with the Real Talk reviews, I'm kind of giving it more of like a candid kind of review. And so, but I did, full disclosure, I did script this one to try to get all my thoughts down. And so it might, you know, we'll see how it goes. But moving on to the characters, I wanted to go over the characters first because the story focuses mostly on the main 4 people in the dungeon party. That's Leos and his party mates, Marcial and Chilchuck. And they end up going into the dungeon and finding their new friend, Senshi, who is a dwarf living in the dungeon, which we find out later on. I just got to say that the character development itself in this manga is just phenomenal. Each character has their own unique personalities and secrets, which, as we go through the manga, we kind of discover one by one which character has these, you know, very deep and dark secrets. I mean, I gotta say, some of them I was not expecting at all, but, you know, that's just how, you know, manga like this go, where it, you know, you think that these are just, you know, cute, lovable, drawn characters and stuff, and then you end up finding out their deepest, darkest secrets and what they're hiding. If I had to pick a favorite character, I gotta say it's gotta be Chilchuck. I don't know what it is about him. I really like his character development. I like that he ends up learning to kind of open up to his teammates, as well as trust them a lot more with specific things. You know, they kind of make him seem more like he's kind of a coward because he sits in the back and stuff, but he just is actually realistic and is like, you know, I don't really have a lot of fighting skills. I can shoot a bow kind of and do decent damage with that, but overall I'm here to pick locks and kind of explore the dungeon and protects us from traps. So he kind of knows his role. But he does end up learning to open up and trust his comrades, which is pretty cool. Plus, I love some of his expressions, especially when Senshi treats him like a little kid, because Senshi doesn't understand what a half-foot is supposed to be, or a halfling. I can't remember. I think they're called half-foots in this manga. Then let's just kind of dive into the story a little bit. Again, I'm gonna try not to have too many spoilers in this manga review, but I will kind of warn you that this part obviously is the story, where there will be some heavy spoilers. The story as a whole is just 10 out of 10, man. Like, I'll admit, like, if you look at the back of this, of the first volume, I found this in a store a while back, and it just says, when young adventurer Leos and his company are attacked and soundly thrashed by a dragon deep in the dungeon, party loses all its money and provisions, and a member, they're eager to go back and save her, but there's just one problem. They set out without no food or coin to speak of. They'll surely starve on the way. But Leos comes with a brilliant idea. Let's eat the monsters. Slimes, basilisks, and even dragons. None are safe from the appetites of these dungeon-crawling gourmands. And I will say, I read that in a store once and kind of looked at the, you know, I flipped through the first book a little bit just to see the artwork and stuff, and then saw the cover. And I really just thought this was a slice of life. Like, it's very misleading, to the point where I had just kind of passed it. I was like, I don't really think I'm going to read this. And this was probably, I want to say, probably about a year before the anime got released. So when the anime was released, I actually went and was like, oh, well, I remember seeing that in stores. Let me give it a watch. And if I like it, then maybe I'll go get the manga after all. And yeah, after probably, I don't know, episode 2 or 3, I was already hooked. You know what I mean? I was already like, oh man, this is a really cool show. And I'm really annoyed and mad at myself for just passing over the manga just because I thought it was a, slice of life. Yeah, the first couple of episodes, they just realized how wrong I actually was. And then not shortly, I want to say after, I'm trying to think exactly the timeline here. I think it was after the first season had aired. A few months afterward, they announced this collector's edition, which is what I ended up getting, as you can see, because, I have it. Me and Erica pre-ordered it on Crunchyroll and got a little bit of a discount. I remember because we were members of Crunchyroll, whatever they call Crunchyroll fans. So I definitely recommend getting this box set if you're going to get the manga, but if you don't want to get the whole thing, you just want to start from where season 1 ends, then just go straight to volume 8 and continue from there. But basically, the basic premise of the story is that it starts off with Leos and his team, as well as a couple other members who kind of, go away and come back. They are stuck in a fight with a red dragon. They're losing. They're super hungry, and it's causing them to struggle with this fight, a fight that they should have won. And because of that, Fallon, his sister, who is also the team's healer, gets basically eaten by the dragon. And as she's getting eaten, she teleports them all out of the dungeon so that they're safe, sacrificing herself. And after they get teleported out, Leos is like immediately like, we have to go back for her, because in this world, death is not permanent. If you die in the dungeon specifically, you can be revived as long as your body is somewhat intact. And so now it's just a race against time to see if they can get her before she is digested. One other thing I find fascinating about this story is it's just the way it's written. I mean, everything revolves around food and eating and kind of just like the camaraderie of it. Like, I don't really understand why like this mangaka focuses so much on it, but you can tell that every aspect of this manga goes into something revolving around cooking, eating, and community, which is a really good story. I mean, every time they get into weird situations, it almost feels like they cook their way out of it. You know what I mean? They just want to make sure that they have, especially Senshi wants to make sure that they're properly eating so they have enough nutrition to get through this dungeon without, getting into the same scenario they got in the first time where they were hungry and ended up losing to the dragon. I mean, even later in the manga, when they meet the inhabitants of the dungeon, such as the orcs, they still revolve around, the orcs teaching them how to cook certain things and them kind of teaching them how to cook bread, which is where the meme comes from. But it's all about community and coming together over a meal. And there's so many times where Leos mentions like he can't wait to have another meal with his sister, kind of a thing, Going into the artwork, I gotta say, it's just really superb. Honestly, like there's no other word for it. This manga is not really known for much, so it's kind of weird that coming out of the gate swinging like this. I would say her artwork is very dark, very detailed in certain parts. With certain panels, I could easily compare to The Great. These are definitely drawn and written by very, very talented artists, and I can't wait to see what's next for Ryoko. I hope that she comes out with another manga very soon that ends up, just knocking people out of the park again. Now, let's go into some spoiler territory. This manga has very massive twists and turns. Early on, you're kind of just following the party, going through the dungeon, kind of diving deeper and deeper and cooking certain things. And then you meet other parties and you meet other characters who all have their own motives for this dungeon. We meet another character whose name is escaping me right now, but he really is focused on making sure that whoever defeats this dungeon deserves to defeat this dungeon. And he kind of is sizing up Leos to be like, maybe he is it, maybe he's not. And in the end, he kind of decides like, yeah, this is not the right guy. Basically, the whole premise of this is to defeat the lunatic magician and take over the entire dungeon. That's kind of the main plot of the story. But then as you go through, you meet the lunatic magician, you find out why the magician is doing what they're doing. And then you meet a group of people in the dungeon who tell the cast, tell Leos how to defeat him, how to defeat the magician. And so they're like, go find the winged lion. And now at this point, this is where the anime kind of ended. And then in the manga, they go deeper into the dungeon. Elves show up on the island, and they basically is a big confrontation between the elves trying to get down to the dungeon and defeat the demon of the dungeon, whereas Leos and his party are trying to meet up with this winged lion to help defeat the lunatic magician. And that's really where the anime ends. Then comes the big spoilers, where basically you find out that the winged lion is just actually a demon who eats people's desires. And again, coming back to that theme of eating. And so the lion kind of tricks people into like, give me your desires, I can make them happen. And he uses his magic to do anything you want in the dungeon, but the cost is he gets to eat, because he is, he needs to be satiated. He's always hungry. He always wants more desires. He ends up eating all the lunatic magician's desires, turning them into basically like a vegetable. And then the big twist is, this whole time you think Leos is going to end up falling for the demon's, curse basically. And it turns out Marcial is the one that ends up falling for it first, which is just crazy. You find out what Marcial's real desires are, and you find out just her motives compared to like Leos's. And I'm trying to kind of skirt the spoilers a little bit. I don't want to give too much away in this one, but I will say genuinely that the way that it's written, the way that you have to go through and be like, oh man, that's what Marcial wanted this whole time, and now she's about to get it. It just kind of is like almost heartbreaking. It's a really good story, has really big twists and turns, and in the end, the whole group has to band together to defeat this demon. And as they're still trying to save Fallon, Leos' sister, who's been turned into, I think I forgot to mention this part, has been turned into like a half hybrid dragon chimera creature by the lunatic magician. And of course, the way they're trying to save her is by eating her dragon parts to separate her from her human parts, which again, everything in this story just comes back to eating, which I think is very, very well written. Honestly, for a manga that came out over 3 years, like, I think that she did a really good job writing this story and kind of keeping it very coherent. I feel like there's not any plot points that get forgotten. It's very straightforward and has really good twists and turns. So that's the end of the spoiler talk. Overall, I can't hype this manga enough. It really is just a must read. When we talk about Real Talk reviews here, we're talking about, is it something that I think everyone should avoid? Is it something I think some people should read or watch or whatever it is? Or is it something that I think everyone has to? And I think everyone really has to read this one. I think it's going to end up being up there with one of the greatest mangas list. I think that a lot of people are going to start reading this, especially after the second season comes out. I think a lot of people are going to end up saying that this is one of the greatest anime of all time. And I think the manga is going to be touted as one of the greatest manga. It's a little surprising that some people aren't really talking about the manga as much as I think they should be, which is part of the reason I wanted to make this video now that I've read the whole thing. Yeah, this is just a must read. If you like anime, read it. If you like manga, read it. If you don't have Netflix but you're curious about Delicious in Dungeon, I would read it. It follows the manga super closely. There's not a lot of differing paths or anything like that. I think it's very well drawn. I think the anime has a little action, which I think will probably end up, especially for the second half, there's certain actiony parts that I think are going to translate super, super well into anime format, and I can't wait. I really wish Netflix would just announce, like, hey, the same studio is working on the second season, and it's going to come out soon with another 24 episodes, and then it's done, But yeah, for this Real Talk review, I will give Delicious in Dungeon, the manga, a must read. There isn't much more I can say except that I love the manga. I really couldn't put it down. I started reading it and I quickly was just blitzing through it, especially the earlier volumes, because I had already watched it on Netflix. So I was kind of like, yeah, I've already watched this. I want to get to the parts where where the new stuff happens, and it did not disappoint. It really didn't. It's a quick read, 14 volumes. I would consider that a small manga. I know there's a lot of manga out there that are 20 plus. That's what I would consider to be more of a larger read. But 14 volumes, you can pretty much do that in like a week, honestly. If you read 2 volumes a day, you could easily get through the whole thing in about a week, or even faster if you want to blitz through it in a weekend or something like that. It makes me really want to go and find her Terrarium and Drawer manga and give that a read. I think that might be just a short story. I don't think that's a full manga, but I'm going to have to research that and kind of go look for that one. But overall, I just want to say thank you so much for watching my Real Talk review on the Delicious in Dungeon or Dungeon Meshi manga. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. Think about subscribing if you like videos like this. I definitely want to try and do more Real Talk reviews on this channel. I don't want to just be video game only. I know most of the content on this channel is video game focused, But we here at Nerd Crew do like things like anime, manga, movies, and basically anything else nerdy. So I do want to definitely do more Real Talk reviews on other subjects. So this is kind of my first manga one. Hopefully it gets a good amount of viewership. I do have a couple other manga that I have read, completely read, and I would love to give those some Real Talk reviews as well. Thanks again for watching. And again, like, subscribe, leave in the comments below. Have you read this manga? Do you like this manga? What would you rate it? Is there any mangas like this that you've read and you want to kind of recommend to us? I'd love to read that. Those in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you nerds later.